Today on DisNEEDS, why you might hate a Disney cruise. Now, there are many things to love on Disney Cruise Line, but not everything is perfect. Today, we've got over 15 reasons why people in your party might not like Disney Cruise Line. Everything from the food, the pools, the rooms, adult-only dynamics, we've got it all. So stick with us today. Grab a snack, sit back, let's dive in. Of course, the first thing with Disney Cruise Line and with many cruises is the dining. Disney is often known for their food, and Disney Cruise Line does not generally disappoint. However, they do have a few things with their dining that could definitely be changed. And for sure, if you have someone in your party that just does not like Disney, specifically Disney in general, then you really need to think about maybe choosing a different cruise line. Now, if they don't like Disney but they can handle it because they love seeing how happy the family is, that's another story. But you definitely want to consider these things. Now, first off, everybody loves dining on a cruise, but with Disney Cruise, the menus never change. We took our first cruise over 10 years ago, and the Disney Dream has the exact same menus now as they did then. As many of you may know, there are 3 main dining restaurants with Disney Cruise Line. They have different levels of immersiveness, both from ship to ship and restaurant to restaurant. We actually have a new video coming out in the next couple of weeks about absolutely everything with Disney Cruise Dining, so keep an eye out for that. But if you have a longer cruise, the menus will change every night of your cruise. So there's those 3 main dining restaurants, and they have set menus for each restaurant. For example, if you've got a 7-night cruise and you're going to be an Animator's Palette for 3 nights of that cruise, one of them will be their main menu. The second one will be a Prince and Princess menu or something like that. And the third will typically be the Pirate Night, which also has its own menu. So you're not going to repeat menus on the same cruise, but if you take that cruise again in the future, the menus will not change. Which is great when you have a favorite dish, because they're always going to have it. People really love the pasta persuettes at Animator's Palette. They have a champagne sauce with some truffle. They are really good. But it's good to know that those menus are not going to change, because if there's just a menu you don't like, well, that's kind of that. There are some other options. We'll get into that in another video. But for now, one of the reasons people dislike Disney Cruise Line is the fact that those menus just don't change. They also have limited dining options on the ships. While the food is generally considered to be high quality, there may be limited options, especially on those smaller ships. Now, if you have food allergies, they do really well with that. You do need to make sure and tell them. Note it on the app. Let your dining team know the first night you get there. They're really great with food allergies. There might be some limited options available, especially outside of the main dining room. Depending on which cruise you are on, there will be multiple quick serve restaurants as well as a buffet type restaurant. If you have specifics that you need to be aware of, I would suggest calling Disney Cruise Line or doing a little bit of research to see how people have dealt with particular allergies or food requirements. Another thing on Disney Cruise Line that is not quite as desirable is their pool sections. They have tiny pools, they are crowded pools and pool decks, and a lot of times I refer to those pools as tiny human soup. The pools and decks on Disney cruises can get quite crowded, especially during peak seasons, and that can detract from the relaxing atmosphere. It is very common to go to the pool decks and see them completely full. Along with teeny tiny pools, they also have teeny tiny elevators. On the first 4 ships, they will have 3 bays of elevators, mid, aft, and forward. And on all of the ships, those elevators are tiny. And on the Disney Wish, they seem to have kicked that up a notch. They only have 2 bays of elevators because they have cut out the midship elevators in order to expand the grand hall feeling in the atrium. The other thing they have added to the elevators on the Disney Wish are button sensors. The buttons on the elevator to choose your floors don't actually get pressed. They are heat sensitive, and they are touchless screens. What happens though is those teeny tiny elevators get really full, and so people are jammed in all the way up to those button panels, and then they all get pressed because there's just too many people in the elevator. We really try to stick with stairs when we are going on the Disney cruise, but if you have somebody who has to take an elevator, this is a consideration. In particular, they'll get really crowded after events. That's when we would often walk down to another elevator bay if we weren't going to take the stairs. But it's kind of a Disney thing. There are lines, and that is still applicable on the ships. Number 5 is something that irritates a lot of people, and I can see why. These are mandatory gratuities. Many cruise lines do not have mandatory gratuities, is something that I've learned. Tipping is really just kind of built into our culture. People get tipped at all kind of restaurants, coffee shops. But if you are from another country that does not do tipping like that all the time, where it's built into the cost already, these mandatory gratuities can seem confusing as well as unnecessary. necessary. It's really good to be aware of them though, because they can add up to a significant expense for some passengers. For example, if you've got 5 people in your stateroom, the suggested gratuities is $14.50 per person per day. And these gratuities are absolutely earned. These go to your stateroom host and your trio of servers at every dinner. During main dining, you will have the same servers at every restaurant, and it's really nice to get to know them, for them to get to know you. We really enjoy paying them even more on top of the mandatory gratuities at the end of the cruise, because they make the cruise so magical. But that is definitely something to be aware of. These are mandatory gratuities. They will say that they are optional. They will also bill them to your stateroom at the end of the cruise if you did not prepay them. In addition to gratuities for those 4 people, there are also automatic gratuities on things like alcohol on the pool deck, rainforest room in the spa. Some of these things will have an automatic 18% gratuity added to them. You can keep a watch on this in the invoice area of the Navigator app. Like I said, we just like to prepay them. They will give you an envelope with a card at the end of the cruise that shows the name of the person and how much the gratuity is. We like to put a little bit extra cash in there because, as I said, they so deserve it. They will make your cruise so magical. But some people just really do not like that mandatory gratuity. The couch beds are also kind of rough on the Disney Cruise Line. Again, if you've got 5 people in your stateroom, you are most likely going to have somebody on the couch bed. In a room that fits 5 people, they will have the main bed, a bunk bed that folds down from the ceiling, and then the couch can turn into a couch bed. For tiny humans of any age, those couch beds are just fine. But if you are a normal-sized adult or even a poo-sized adult, you are really not going to appreciate those couch beds. They are small, they are hard, they are extremely uncomfortable. So definitely take that into consideration if you think you're going to be using those. One of the adult-only aspects that we really enjoy on the cruise is the piano music in the bar. They will schedule this. These are usually about 45 minutes or so. They will be on your Navigator app, so you'll know when this is. Usually they play some catchy tunes. You can sing along or not. But the thing with it on the cruise ship is that they fill up really fast. This is one of those things that you do want to get there early for, because as is almost anything in Disney, they will fill up fast. And these bars are kind of small where they have the piano music. For example, on the Fantasy, we really wanted to go listen to some piano music in Ooh La La, but we got there right when it was starting and the bar was full, so we didn't stay. On the Disney Wonder, the Cadillac Lounge was actually almost never full, and we really love that. I think that's because 1, it's a smaller ship, there's less adult. 2, we tend to go on off-season, so the ships aren't always completely full at those times. And 3, we probably just got lucky. Those bars on the larger ships are really small though, and they can get very crowded. So if there's something you really do want to do, just get there a little bit early. Along with that, they also have limited nightlife on the Disney cruise ships. While there is entertainment and nightlife on Disney cruises, some passengers may find that the options are limited compared to other cruise lines. The silent disco, however, does seem to be quite popular. I would definitely check it out if they have it on your cruise. Now, the reason nightlife can be limited is threefold. 1, 3 and 4 night cruises are very fast and people aren't out late as much because they have so much going on during the day at ports. There's just not going to be as many people out at night. And even though they might have a dance club, sometimes there's no one there, and that's not a lot of fun either. The first 4 ships, Magic, Wonder, Dream, and Fantasy, all have adult-only sections that will have a pub, a bar, and a nightclub at the very least. This Dream and Fantasy have multiple bars, but the Disney Wish has changed this completely. They no longer have that big section where all the bars are in their own little area. They also do not have a nightclub. On the Wish, Luna is their replacement for the nightclub, I think, but it is not a nightclub. So it is definitely important to be aware that Disney Cruise Line does have some limited nightlife on their cruise ships. That being said, 7-night cruises, transatlantic, those longer cruises, a lot of times, the longer than 7 nights in particular, are a lot of times more adult than tiny humans, and so they will have more going on because of the fact that there's just more adults out at night. And because they're on longer cruises, they have more time to hang out at night because there's days at sea. It's just a little bit different dynamic on the longer cruises than the 3 and 4 night cruises. One other thing to do with adult travel on Disney Cruise Line is there are no alcohol packages on their ships. You can carry on alcohol, but there are not actual drink packages. What they have is a drink of the day cup, which is only available on the first day of the cruise. You get a couple of more ounces for a little bit less money. It's not a big deal, but it does help save. You also can bring those cups back year after year, so that could be a good deal as well. They have $5 Bloody Marys and mimosas before noon every day, and you can carry on alcohol. Each adult over 21 can carry on 2 bottles of wine or champagne or 6 bottles or cans of beer per person per port. So while they don't have those alcohol packages, they do have some options. Oh, along with the drink of the day cup, they also have a beer mug. The beer mug's available online a lot of times before you get on the ship, so you can purchase it there. It'll be in your stateroom when you get there. The fun thing about this beer mug is that they will get a little bit more beer for a little bit less cost. Not a big difference, but you also can trade in that beer mug. So if you're done drinking for a little bit, you can trade in the mug, get a little coin, take that coin with you, and get another beer mug when you're ready. So it's kind of nice to not have to carry that around. And along with no alcohol packages, they also do not have casinos on Disney cruise ships. They do have bingo, and it's expensive, it's popular, they have big pots that you can win sometimes, but there is no casino. Moving on to costs, there are a couple of things that are a little surprising on Disney Cruise. One is their Wi-Fi costs. They do not have very good packages, and they are expensive. I've heard that they are starting to work on this, that the Disney Wish actually has an okay package for Wi-Fi. I definitely would check into that. Don't count on it, because we have never seen good prices on Wi-Fi. So if you have to have internet while you're on the ship, make sure you know how to do that, as far as putting it on airplane mode, cutting off all of the things that will drain your Wi-Fi when you turn it on, so that it is only being used for exactly what you want. If you do not know how to do that, go to their desk. They'll have someone there the first day. They can help you out with that. In addition to that, if you go to that desk on the first day, there is a little bit of free Wi-Fi that you can get. It is only available on the first day, so check into that as well. One other thing along with that is iPhones can typically iMessage each other on the ship and from ship to shore. Don't quote me on that. Make sure you double check. You don't want to get any surprise charges, but our last cruise, we were easily able to message from the ship back to shore with our iPhones, and there was no charge for that. And of course, it's Disney. Prices can get really high for Disney cruises, especially during peak season. Interestingly enough, peak season is also when they do their highest cost destinations, which are Europe and Alaska. Peak season for Disney Cruise Line is May through August, spring breaks, and the maritime cruises. These are going to be very full, and so that's going to drive the prices up. There's actually an interesting way you can see this. They just released summer 2024 pricing. It will be available to book over the week. What's interesting about it, though, is you can go to the website and you can set up your search parameters for just summer 2024. It will show you the new cruises that are being released, and within that you can see how much the price really changes. For example, they have May pricing versus July pricing, and if you go in the beginning of May, you can get the exact same cruise $2,000 cheaper. The only difference is the time of year. So we always go on the shoulders of the season, when it's just getting started, during the really down times like Alaska at the very beginning and end of their seasons. May and September is where you're going to find the best prices. Even during peak season or shoulder season, these prices are going to be higher than, say, Norwegian or Royal. Obviously, Carnival's a lot cheaper. And for somebody that doesn't love Disney, or at least like Disney, these prices could definitely be a deal breaker. One thing people really love about Disney cruises are their stage shows. These stage shows are phenomenal. It's Disney after all, and they know how to tell a story. The lights, the sets, the actors, they are really good. I highly suggest you go see these shows. And for me, I can watch a couple of them year after year. But for the most part, the stage shows are kind of a one and done for me, and these shows rarely change. For people that like more variety, maybe a rock concert, a Cirque du Soleil type show, they don't have these on Disney Cruise. The shows on Disney Cruise Line are definitely sentimental. They're going to be heartwarming. They're going to take you back to those times when you were a kid. Some people just don't enjoy that dynamic, and they are not going to like Disney Cruise shows because of that. And of course, with absolutely anything Disney, there are going to be lines. These are especially true for the buffet in breakfast and lunch. Oh my gosh. And it's not as much of a line as it is just chaos. For me, I completely avoid the buffet because I do not like that energy that's up there. We just always go to the sit-down restaurant, And even for main dining every night, there are going to be lines, long lines, especially for maritime events. For example, if you are on a maritime cruise, they will have a winter ball in the atrium. There are 3 or 4 decks that can look down on the atrium, and all those decks will be full with people surrounding the atrium to see the shows that are going on below. You do need to get there early for any of those spots. Those multiple decks will all fill up. There will be lines for the water slides, stage shows, getting on and off the ship sometimes. Just be aware there are lines. The smaller ships, the Magic and the Wonder, aren't going to have as many lines, and they're not going to be as long because those ships hold approximately 2,400 guests. Fantasy, Dream, and the Wish hold approximately 4,000 guests. Those ships' lines get a lot longer. And you will also find the same dynamic for the deck parties, fireworks. There's just going to be people jammed in there everywhere, which is going to create a lot of long lines at those elevators afterwards. I am absolutely not a crowd person, so for me, I tend to not get there early because I don't want to get stuck in the crowd like that. But I absolutely miss some things because of that. But I would just rather avoid the lines most times. The fun thing about that is if there's a big line in one area of the ship, there's probably not in the other area, so just head over there. Of course, you can't do that if you're there for a specific event, but that is an option. I was a little surprised to hear that there are accessibility issues on the Wish in particular. I think all of the cruise ships have some dynamics for accessibility that can make it a little bit tough. I have not traveled with anyone that is in need of a wheelchair or anything like that, so I have not personally experienced this. But I have definitely had feedback and seen comments where people say the accessibility is just a real problem, especially on the Wish. There's a lot of stairs, a lot of very small spaces. If you have specific needs regarding accessibility, make sure you look into that before you book your cruise and see if it's going to be a fit for you and your family. There are a lot of people that travel with Disney that have dietary issues, accessibility needs, or other special needs. Disney is really good with special needs in general, but make sure you check for whatever dynamics you might have with your family. They also have limited options for solo travelers. It's just not cost effective to travel solo on Disney Cruise Line. There are fewer options or accommodations available, and there's no break in the fare. If you have 2 adults in a stateroom that is, say, $3,000 for that cruise, if you wanted to have just 1 adult in that cabin, it'd probably be about $2,800, so it is definitely not a savings. It's not a reason to not go as a solo traveler. I've heard a lot of people really enjoy it as a solo traveler. I have enjoyed going to Disneyland and Disney World solo on occasion. But with the cruise, it's just so fun to share it with someone also. I don't think it's really a best choice for traveling solo. And of course, with Disney Cruise Line, you are gonna have all Disney all the time. There's Disney theming at dinners, Disney music in the lobbies and hallways, Disney movies on the funnel vision by the pool. Their movie theaters are strictly Disney, and most of everything on the TV in your stateroom is Disney as well. About the only thing that is not Disney on a Disney cruise ship is the sports games. If the Super Bowl or some big playoff is going on while you are on the cruise, they will have that on at the pubs. If it's a Super Bowl, it'll probably be on funnel vision as well. But that's about the only thing that is not Disney on a Disney cruise. For me, that is really fun because I'll find myself just wandering around and all of a sudden there's a song that I've always loved or that I really loved when I was growing up, and that just takes me back. It gets me into a whole different level of mood that other cruise ships just can't do because they don't have that dynamic. They don't have that history. And Disney, of course, does have an overwhelming focus on children. Disney cruises are family friendly, of course, but some passengers may feel that the ship is geared a little too heavily towards those tiny humans with a limited range of adult-focused activities or entertainment options. For many people, that is great because there is Disney trivia, there is Disney movies, there is Match Your Mate, which is a really fun game show for adults only. Definitely check that one out. You can even go to the youth clubs during open houses, which can be a lot of fun as well because with that focus on the tiny humans, they really have some fun stuff to play with in those clubs, especially if you're Star Wars or Marvel fans. One other thing that is a bit limited limited with Disney Cruise Line is they have limited itineraries. They typically have fewer destinations and ports of call compared to other cruise lines. So if you are really looking to travel and explore a wide range of places, Disney Cruise is not going to be able to fulfill that yet. That being said, they have transatlantic cruises, they have European cruises, they go to Alaska, Bahamas, Caribbean, Mexico. They have recently also added Australia and New Zealand, and there are 3 more ships coming up, so this will expand over time, but it's definitely still in progress. Disney Cruise is fabulous for the people that love it, but for those that don't, they might really hate a Disney cruise. So make sure and consider who you're traveling with and what their limits are in regard to Disney. Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining in the Disney fun. We'll see you real soon with some more DisNEEDS.